Call the Town of Rome Board meeting to order for Thursday, June 16th, 2022 at 5 p.m. Please, I'll start with a roll call, starting from my left.
Chamati here.
Minter here.
Asdell here.
Bowman here.
Bauerheit here.
Number 3, certified posting of the meeting, please.
I certify that on Monday, June 13th, 2022, the amended agenda for the Town of Rome Board meeting for Thursday, June 16th, 2022 was emailed to the Wisconsin Rapids Tribune at 1:42 p.m., posted at Rome Town Hall at 1:43 p.m., at Leicester Public Library of Rome at 2:21 p.m., and Nakusa Port Edward State Bank at 2:30 p.m.
Thank you. Number 4, could I get a motion to approve the agenda?
Motion to approve is printed.
Seconded.
Any discussion? All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carried. Number 5, please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. Citizen comments, number 6. Do we have any?
No.
We will dispense with number 6. No action contemplated except possible referral to future agenda. Number 7, information updates, meeting recaps, recent correspondence, current events, and announcements. Lori, would you like to start?
Hoozles tonight has their Rise to Music Singing Competition Round 2 from 6 to 9. I guess last week was a lot of fun. This weekend on Saturday, June 18th, Tri Norris has their Midi Mutter obstacle course for the kids from 4.
They rescheduled it.
Oh, they did?
So it will be in August,
Oh,
so it won't be this
bummer.
weekend.
Okay. All right. And then a little bit of Nash starts next weekend, June 23rd, which will be a lot of fun. The first one is at Lake Arrowhead on Thursday for Tunes on the Turn from 5 to 8. Friday is at the Lakeside Waterfront Restaurant and Bar in Friendship from 4 to 8. Saturday is at Camelot on the Lake from 1 to 5. And then Sunday wraps it up from 1 to 5. And that's being sponsored by Visit Rome and Rome Away from Home Vacation Lodges. And all 4 singers, songwriters are from Nashville, and they're young, up and coming artists. And let's see, what else did I have here? Do you want to do the library stuff, or I had a couple of them?
you got a couple
because I was
both.
visiting the library. And okay, so they have story time at the library on Fridays for the months of June and July from 10 to 11, outside weather permitting. And then they do have a painting class. That'll be June 28th from 11 to 1. I know that's later in the month, but we won't be meeting anymore, so I wanted to bring that one up. And they said that votes are still being taken for their new logo throughout the rest of the summer, so please go online and vote if you can. Number 16 seems to be the front runner, and that was done by our very own Cassie, who's our full-time library employee. And they do have an egg carton planter craft this weekend on Saturday, the 18th, from 11 to 1 for anybody in your family that's visiting, or you that live here that want to partake. And that is what I have. So thank you.
Well, building on Lori's library stuff, just the summer reading program is going on for kids and adults. So go in, sign up, start reading books. A couple of the kids in particular have already picked up some prizes. A week in.
Dan?
Just a reminder, if you're a Lake Camelot Property Owners Association member, the annual meeting is this Saturday at 9 a.m. A lot of information there and a good opportunity to meet some new folks around the lake.
Thank you. Bob?
I have nothing.
I got 2 things for Rome Snow Bandits. One, we do know that they were the Wisconsin Snowmobile Club of the Year, but they are also national and international. We can finally announce that. So it's
Trifecta.
that's a huge win for those folks. They did a great job.
Yeah.
We do have the Snow Bandits car show this weekend. It is 9 to 3, as I've been told. And grants. We did have our first grant meeting last week, and came up with some items. And one thing, like for Mark, we'll be looking for needs on things and what we should be going after based on needs, and then wants to be kind of down the road. But it was a pretty good meeting, pretty productive. We had 5 people there. We're back down to 4, so we're still looking for some more volunteers. But we'll do okay with 4, but there's a lot of good possibilities there. So. Anything else, Jamie?
I have two things. I just wanted to remind everyone that's watching from home and that's here tonight, that we are relooking at our comp plan. So if there are individuals that want to provide input on the comp plan, just a reminder that we meet the second Tuesday of the month at 2:30. Those meetings are also recorded and replayed on community access too, for anyone that would like to provide input for the comp plan. And the other item is there is a partisan primary coming up. It is Tuesday, August 9th. Absentee ballots will be mailed on June 23rd, and just like for the spring election, absentee ballots need to be brought in person by the individual that requested the absentee ballot and provide it to the clerk treasurer, or if the clerk treasurer is not available, to the deputy clerk treasurer, but they cannot be put into the drop box. So if you did request an absentee ballot, please remember to save yourself enough time to, the best method is to put it back in the mail to us. But the drop box will be sealed from right after June 23rd until we get through that partisan primary.
If I could just piggyback on something the chairman said about the Snow Bandits, Larry Halverson, who's a member of our Plan Commission, announced at that meeting that as part of winning that international and national award, they'll be inducted into the Snowmobile Hall of Fame in September. So that's pretty exciting as well. So congratulations to the Snow Bandits. That's a really incredible group of people in our town.
Wonder if we'll get a sign bigger than our Rome sign out there, huh? Never know. See what they offer. No. All right, number 8, department and committee reports.
They are all included in the packet. If you have questions, we're happy to address them.
I actually have some for the administrator, if I may.
Sure.
On your report, I have one regarding number 7. And I noticed on a couple in being newly reelected. You have an AC for Adams County Economic Development office hours. What is that, and how many, and what actually transpires during that,
Yeah,
please?
it's a great question. So last year was the first full year. This is our second year that we've had a contract with Adams County Economic Development and Derek Smith.
Okay.
So Derek Smith comes up here to the town hall twice a month. It's from 1 to 3 on Thursday afternoons. He schedules appointments for businesses to do individual counseling or planning with them. It's also an opportunity for him to join the CDA meetings and do business visits with the CDA that we usually do on the first Thursday of the month. And then it's just also a time for, I sit on their economic development board for Adams County. It's just also, I'm a non-voting member, but I participate in that board. Just the time to catch up on county-wide economic development things. So especially with the bounce back grants that have been happening, you have to have a letter from Derek. It gives him an opportunity to meet, if businesses need a letter, that they can meet face to face and handle that before it goes to the North Central Planning Commission.
So do we have a lot of our local businesses taking advantage of that opportunity with him then?
We've had some. We did a letter right after we entered into the contract that just shared that he is available and would provide opportunity. Certainly, anytime we work with a new business, we mention that if they need access to low interest loans or help finding good financial help for planning, those kinds of things, that Derek can help them through that process.
Oh, that's great. So then that's the way they can find out about those loans that are available and the one the county has. and-
Yes.
Okay, great.
Yes, Derek's really the expert on that, so
Right.
it's best to just direct it right to Derek.
Okay, and then the other question I had, the other two questions, you met with the Lakes Area Christian Fellowship and Visit Rome for potential community-wide projects and interests. Could you share just some of the details of that meeting with us and what might come out of that?
Sure. So Lakes area, they have a relatively new pastor. He's been here for, I think, almost a year now, but
Right.
is looking for a community project that the entire church would want to take on. Some items that we potentially discussed is if we did the Adopt a Town Road, that they would be the individuals that are organizing, like Snow Bandits have this section and Visit Rome has
Oh, I
this
see.
section, and Attorney Flanagan has this section, and then they'd be calling to make sure, make sure that it got checked in the time frame and signed off on, and they would provide the bags and they would organize a project like that. So we discussed some potential options as far as like a lot of times we have people that need a little bit of help assistance in their home, like washing windows. Like, could they have a helper list where they could organize people getting that assistance? We
Okay.
talked about volunteer database, that they would keep the
Okay.
volunteer database for the town. So they're discussing which of those projects is most exciting for them as a church and would communicate back.
And then my last question, please, would just be, you had city officials here from Wisconsin Rapids and toured the Sand Valley Resort. Can you just share some of the details of who came and what their comments were?
Sure. We had a common developer that contacted both the city of Wisconsin Rapids and us. And the city said, we'd like to just come down and tour Sand Valley. So it was their community director, Kyle Kearns. It was the chamber president, Angel Whitehead. And I'm not sure if everyone knows, Patrick Gatterman is now the executive director for the Small Business Development Center out of UWSP. The mayor was also scheduled to be there but had a conflict, so he couldn't attend. And we just did a tour on Sand Valley and talked about future employment growth and what that would mean for housing needs.
For employment growth and housing. Did you have anybody from the CDA or a board member with you, or just?
No, this
Nope,
was
okay.
an informal start of a conversation based on if there is a joint developer that would have interest in locating someplace.
Okay.
Yep.
All right, thank you very much. Thank you.
I had one other question I forgot before. Hannah may have asked this before. When the library takes out these movies, is there a possibility of showing those on Channel 300, or are we restricted?
We've asked that question. I think we need to get clarification. That license comes through South Central because we are part of the South Central library system. So we need to ask that question to South Central if we can show it wider than library general.
Okay, thanks. Anything else?
It's just maybe a general question related to budget. At what point do we get concerned about our fuel budget across multiple departments?
Not quite yet. We do expect that it might be a little bit over because of what's currently happening, but we're also exploring some options now with Quick Trip on some potentially different partnerships since they're located next door. We are a part of the Voyager system, which is the state plan for fuel, so we do get discounted fuel through that, and then they remove the state and local tax off of that also. So the price that you see isn't the price that we pay. But we're exploring if there's other potentials to even reduce that price.
Okay, good.
Yeah, I had another question for Jamie. Do you happen to know who's responsible for the septic permit on the band shell? Is it Advantage or?
Advantage, and they have the soil sample done and they have the paperwork filed. I talked to Eric and he said that he was getting it taken care of.
So do we have any idea as to when we could get a okay on that?
I don't have I would only be guessing on timeline, but Eric and I talked several days ago now, and he was getting it taken care of.
So maybe they can get started within a couple weeks?
Oh yeah, I would think so. I
Good.
wouldn't think it would take that long. They do that quite often.
Okay.
Back to Dan's question, are we able to use the second round of ARPA monies to help offset some of those additional fuel costs that we're facing?
Potentially, I'm not sure at this moment though that you would need to.
Okay.
And we're coming.
But is it
I
a
mean,
possibility if we would need to?
It likely would all fall under government, yeah.
General government services?
But, so you're coming up on, you're almost to your halfway mark. Pretty soon we're gonna roll budget and start that process. But we have to get at least June 30th, I think, is our halfway point, both for vouchers and for bills and for payroll. And then we will start to do the deep dive.
Okay. Thank you.
Anything else? Discuss and possible action on the following items. Number 9, discussion and action approval of the June 2nd, 2022 meeting minutes. Can I get a motion, please?
Yeah, I move that we approve the June 2nd meeting minutes as presented.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carried. Number 10, discussion and action. Checks, vouchers, receipts, and journal entries. Approved checks number 44182 through 44264 totaling $167,182.22. Auto payments totaling $60,200.84. State Social Security Medicare withholdings totaling $32,931.78. Payroll vouchers V18778 through V18905 totaling $88,701.26. Receipts numbers 23322 through 23564 totaling $163,714.05. Can I get a motion, please?
Move to approve the checks and vouchers as presented.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in
Yes.
favor? Okay.
I had a question. There's a couple items here on the check register for windshield repairs, and it says due from utility. Is that the water utility? Are they gonna get reimbursed from their insurance or not?
100%. All windshields are covered at 100%.
That's what I thought.
You're still gonna see it though as a input for, because we get the check comes to us and then we pay the windshield company.
And then there was another check for GMA Total Care. Does anybody remember what that's about?
What page are you on?
I'm on page 4, $133.
Page 4. I'm coming up to look at your report. That's Payne Johnson, so that is, and that came out of general fund, that's our copy machine, contracted service pay.
Okay. Thank you. Nothing else.
It's like rapid fire tonight, I'm loving it.
All
I
right,
would
any,
also just mention water utility, again, in your packet too,
Yep.
as a separate attachment. Okay.
looks good. All right, we have a motion and a second. Any other discussion? All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion's carried. Number 11, discussion of possible action, approval of disposal of 2015 Dodge Charger and set minimum bid amount. We did get a minimum, correct?
Yep, so memo in your packet, this vehicle was damaged in the hailstorm, it also had a minor collision. It's our oldest in the fleet, we would set a minimum bid of $4,000. Likely this would go through Wisconsin surplus like our other vehicles have. We did receive for the hail damage back from insurance just today, $6,614 for this vehicle. That's what the hail damage repair would have cost, so. But we'd set minimum bid at $4,000.
Motion to approve disposal of the vehicle with a minimum bid amount of $4,000.
I'll second it.
Any further discussion? All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion's carried. Number 12, discussion and possible action, approval to order a police vehicle in 2022 due to limited supply and supply chain delays.
So again, there is a memo in the packet just kind of outlining, we have a 7-vehicle fleet. We would mark one of the Explorers in the fleet to replace this Charger, because, we have an 8 fleet vehicle. So, then we would have one for every officer, with the sale of that 15. We've just had so much trouble with getting vehicles in. We'd like to place the order now, knowing that it likely won't come till next year. That at least gets it in the process to be made so we can get it here. If by chance it would come in 2022, we would do a budget resolution to ensure that we had that cost accounted for within the budget. Otherwise, we would budget for 2 replacement vehicles next year.
Do you know how many miles are on that 2015 that we're gonna dispose of?
200,000
That's ridiculous.
is a lot.
How many are on the 2017 vehicles, do you know?
No.
I know Chief's not here, but
Yeah, I mean, it's
at one point we were at the 5-year 100,000 rule, and that seems to have gone out the window, so.
well, we still try to stick to it, but we had that accident and then we got kind of bunched up. So this also will help if we order one now and we'll get 2 replacement, we'll get back onto that schedule.
Okay.
The other thing was COVID, right? So we had ordered one.
Yeah, I
and-
know that's
Yeah,
causing
then it took
problems.
well over a year to get that one, so, yeah.
We'll be back on track then, one per year, typically.
After next year,
Yeah.
yeah. We likely will still, it's like every 4th year you'd have 2 just because of the rotation, but we hopefully would get back on a better track, because we have a lot of 17s now in the fleet.
And just for everybody who's watching, the objective there is to maximize the residual value when we go to sell these. So,
Right.
Okay, can I get a motion, please?
I move to approve the purchase of another police vehicle in 2022 or 2023,
Is it just a purchase or an order?
in order.
It'd be in order, yep.
I'll second.
Any further discussion? All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion carried. Number 13, discussion and possible action, approval of police chief recommendation for Shermelot Ski Team to hold water exhibition events as authorized in Town Code 137, boating and waterways, Article 1, water traffic, boating and water sports, Section 6, races, regattas, sporting events, and exhibitions.
So the next several items sort of relate to each other, but this would be an approval of Shermelot operating on the 3 lakes, 2 just for limited practice and shows for special events, and then main practice and shows on Lake Arrowhead. So they did a nice job outlining when they do practice and when the shows are in their memo, and you can see that chief has provided an approval of that waiver, would recommend approval to the board.
Yeah, I think he came up with an excellent alternative here, rather than trying to reconfigure the whole sign, so I think do away with the sign, go with this route, and we're covered.
So what are we calling this? A waiver of,
You would call this approval of a race regatta sporting events or exhibitions.
I would call it a water exhibition event.
Yeah.
That's,
Authorized by the
I thought we were
chief.
talking about the,
no, so 13 and 16 are a little bit related. At this point, what we're doing is, so under our ordinance, we have, under our speed restrictions, we have that you can have events that are permitted be exempt from those. And so what we're doing with 13 first is authorizing, at the chief's recommendation, these water exhibition events. That's what you're doing with 13. And then we'll visit, I think, the chairman's comments at 16.
I'll make a, I'll
In your
make a-
motion, please include your expiration. Is it indefinite? Is it for 2 years?
yeah, I'll make a motion to approve the water exhibition events as detailed by Shermelot Water Ski Team and approved by the police chief for a term to be indefinite.
second.
Any further discussion? All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carried. And tell chief, it was an excellent resolution. Number 14, discussion only, prohibiting water sacks, ballast, or submersible wing device used on Lake Camelot, Sherwood, and Arrowhead. This is relative to wave boats.
So there was a great deal of information included in your packet. There's some really good resources that I had found out there. So you do have included the City of Mequon's Code of Ordinance that they adopted in 2019, some information that happened up in Sawyer County, both for the county proper and for the town of Hayward, and then a very, I think, well put together report from Presque Isle, Wisconsin, that talks quite a bit about the effects of wakes, and details out a nice report on why they wanted to put in an ordinance, what that would mean and how it would affect all boats. In addition to that, you also have some information if you did a question on the ballot, which would be a non-binding referendum question, some information on timeline of what that would mean. Depending on the conversation tonight, I just also wanted to make sure that I mentioned that if you did want to put a question on the fall ballot, we would have to have that work done by August 18th. So that would be 4 meetings in order to put that together and be ready to submit to the county for ballot printing.
And by work done, she's referring to a resolution that would be in front of you for adoption.
So what I'm thinking we'd be looking for, in my personal opinion, would be an advisory referendum.
That's the non-binding she's talking about.
But you have to have something specific. It can't be a general question, right?
Well, so part of your resolution that would kick off that advisory referendum would be developing the questions, it could be questions.
But we don't have to have a draft ordinance to provide as background to that, right?
Wouldn't a survey be more appropriate? I mean, it also would involve seasonal people then, that way they can't vote, they can't come to a referendum. So it would attract a wider audience potentially.
Question. Yes, sir.
Am I allowed to say
Could you,
something?
yes, please come to the microphone.
Can you make sure there's a button? I don't think it's on, but there you go.
And just identify yourself for the
Yeah, my
minutes.
name is Tom Kemper. Our family's been on the Lake Shore for about 25 years. We've got a wake boat. We've specially bought it that way. I don't know, I haven't read the rules and regs, but boy, that's kind of hard to enforce. No fat sacks? Now, what happens if we put 3 fat people in the back of the boat like me? Are we classified a fat sack? I haven't read the rules, but boy, I would like to see a public meeting on a Saturday with all 3 lakes. So I can't vote here, and I understand that. But it sure would be nice, like Camelot's having a meeting this weekend. Bring it up and see what the landowners that own the property, what they think on the lake.
Yeah, well, that's what we are planning to do. We're gonna have a referendum or a survey with
Yeah.
everybody in town here to get, you know.
Right, okay. All
Feedback
right,
and all, but
hey, thanks very much, and
Oh, yeah, sure.
have a good day.
again, a lot of the data was turned out, there was one I was looking for, because we've been looking at this issue actually on Tri-Lakes for a couple of years. Most of the information has been more or less favoring wave boats, but it was all put out by the wave boat manufacturers and the DNR. But this other one with Prescott and a few others here, the one that is very concerning and disconcerting is the wave energy from some recreational wake-inducing boats is significant to depths of 16 feet. And that's where the major issues are gonna be happening. We were wondering about why we have these algae blooms. Some of it's because we have additional chemicals and going the whole ball of wax. But if they're disturbing the sediment in the bottom of the lake, they're churning up additional nutrients that are sitting down there, mostly the phosphates. So that's gonna be another cause for algae, which we hadn't thought about. But at 16 foot, with a 100-foot setback from the shore, that's gonna cover a lot of our lakes. So
Yeah,
that-
well, I mean-
that's significant.
Having been on the Camelot board for a number of years now, I've gotten it from both sides, and you can argue both sides until you're blue in the face, which is why I'm suggesting we go down the route we're going. Let's get the opinion of the majority, and we do what the majority wants to do.
Yeah, but let's make sure the information's out there so they can make an intelligent decision, not just,
Right, but you gotta present balanced information too.
for sure.
Yeah, the information also presented in Pressed Isle stressed the importance of shallow lakes, which is what we have, and narrow lakes.
Would it help if they did shoreline preservation, rather than having the big sand beaches?
Well, that's part of it when they come close to shore, but the sediment disturbance underneath is a huge problem. And the DNR will not let us harvest all the way to shore because of that. They maintain we have to have a minimum of 5-foot depth to come in, because they don't want us turning up the soil for, one is for the chemicals, the other one is for fish habitat and nesting and stuff like that. So I'm kind of surprised the DNR hasn't jumped on this. They were in favor of the wake boats over time, but now, with their concerns of what's disturbing the lakes, who knows? But
Well, nobody
I
wants to
agree.
deal with the lawsuits that come along with it, because believe me, I've already been threatened.
Well, it
Well, I
is what
did
it is.
also
But
include in here Prescott, which I think did a very good job of outlining
Yes.
it.
Did they ever pass theirs?
No, because they went to court from this, and but it wasn't about the wake boats, it was about the ability of a town to ask the question, which court said they can ask the question, but I think then they missed the spring ballot to ask the question. So it is not adopted yet. It is adopted in Mequon, and it is adopted in the town of Hayward.
Mequon is for the Mississippi or the Milwaukee River, so it's a narrow body anyway. But yeah, there's limited, but more and more towns are looking at it. So yes, well, I think we should move forward with a referendum. We'll outline it. Maybe the next meeting we'd have a outline of the questions.
But I think Lori has something to add to.
Go ahead.
I just had a couple of comments. I guess my first concern is safety. That's my biggest concern. I understand that it does damage to the lakes, and that's also very important. But as the waves get bigger and the people enjoying other types of vehicles and the types of people that are enjoying those vehicles, like pontoons and smaller boats, like fishing boats and those types of things on our lakes, these are a big concern as far as safety goes and the types of families that are riding in those boats. I understand, and when you start confusing people with data and information, and Presque Isle did do a nice job here, but and you start reading this stuff, people go blind and they stop reading. And I think the biggest thing here is the safety thing and what it does. And, you know, you can, communicate on the referendum, but you can also communicate on an ordinance. And I think we should maybe consider both ways of doing it before we go right to a referendum. That would be my, pardon?
Fully agree.
I mean, maybe there's something that we need to talk about further as a board, because we are elected sometimes to make those difficult decisions. You know, that's what we're here to do, and we've been given some very good information, and there are other towns in here that have made that difficult decision and implemented an ordinance. And we know the size of our lakes, we know how narrow they are, and we know how big those boats are getting.
Are you suggesting that we should jump right to a resolution?
I'm thinking maybe we need to have a
Ordinance?
community meeting and talk about it and see where the general consensus might lie
Well, that's what we're
before we
attempting to
jump
do.
to a referendum.
That's what we're attempting to do.
But we're talking a referendum that would have to be in by August 1st.
August 18th, but it's
Or August
it's a
18th.
non-binding question. I think the other
Right.
piece with that question is,
It's non-binding, so we'd still be in that same place next year after the referendum would be,
and I think as a town and as a board, you could communicate but not advocate for the question.
Well, you set the question, and then there are types of notices that we are obligated to put out, and you're not advocating one side or the other. You're
Right.
just calling the effect of a yes vote and the effect of a no vote. We would put that information out there. I think Chairman said it well, that
right? But-
it isn't weighted on any side. It's just getting the information out there and making sure that the public is educated before they head to the polls.
I just don't want to lose sight of the safety and just focus on,
Well, yeah, safety's an aspect, but it's also devaluing people's properties.
right,
Sir? Yes?
right, I understand that.
I'll just wait.
Okay.
I understand it's affecting,
Anyway, the other thing is too, we also have to take into consideration some other regulations that I haven't seen out there, but additional time, time restrictions possible, or additional distances, maybe a 200-foot minimum from shore, 100 foot from other boats. I'm just throwing this out there, but look at other options instead of just saying this, or this, so
I mean, truthfully,
offer as many options as we can. That makes sense.
the advent of wake surfing is what's truly causing the problem here. Because nobody's running at a speed doing wakeboarding, even with ballast. That's creating the problem wake surfing is.
That's what Presque Isle also mentioned about boats in transition, meaning that they're throwing a bigger wake because they're not on plane.
I realize it's ruining people's shorelines, I get that, I understand that. But you were going into water quality and that sort of thing, I understand that.
There's all different issues on
Yeah.
this, and again, we got small lakes, they're not,
But this list here is saying like
anyway.
drainage, seepage, or this people would start going and they're like.
well, we wouldn't include all that. We'd give them the general information, so, sir?
I do have one comment again. Now, if this does come up
Can you
for a
come up
vote,
to the mic,
Like,
please?
yeah.
Tom Kemper here again. I have another comment. If this does come up for a vote, we're having people vote yes or no that don't have lake frontage property. So the people that are on lake frontage, and they don't own property here, really don't have any say in this whole thing. Correct? If this comes up for a vote,
Can't, really,
We'd refer to legal on that. so-
If it's on a referendum.
Yeah, we'd have to refer to
Just-
legal.
Just to clarify, sure, you might have people renting, not owning. I guess
They have
that's
access.
but
but if I
if we're
own,
They have
if
lake
you're sending
access
it to a
though,
referendum-
through public launches
I'm
and
not a
all.
resident
But you
here,
said
so-
not, you don't own property here. If you're sending it to a referendum, they'd have to be a qualified elector to
Correct.
vote, which means they either rent or own somewhere in the town of Rome.
But if the referendum with whatever, and then when it comes to a public vote, who gets to vote on it? The whole township?
The election, you're saying
All
the
five
referendum
voters.
vote?
After the referendum, let's say it
It would,
passes.
there wouldn't be a second, then it would come back to board.
Oh, okay, all right, thank you.
But you don't just own property and get to vote, you have to be a
Right.
registered.
Exactly,
voter.
qualified elector, right?
Donna, you gotta come to the mic, please?
we don't have to look at only one method, right? We can put
Exactly,
together-
yes, there's
That's all.
maybe ones we don't even, aren't aware of yet, but yes. Red button.
Okay, it's not. I would just add that, you know, I agree with Lori to some extent that it is a safety issue. I don't know how many people have been in a boat when one of these wake boats went by. They're halfway down the lake, and all of a sudden you're telling everyone on your boat to sit down and hang on because this wave is coming. A couple of years ago, we hit a wave. Had to be from a wake boat. I can't confirm that, but look back now. And I had a fracture because I was literally thrown out of my seat. These waves, based on the research that I've done, need like 500 feet, 5 times more for that wave to settle down. So again, we had it happen in our boat once when the kids were up, and the boat is just rocking all over the place. So you got little kids or something, when this wake hits them, they better be hanging on to something. So.
Okay, fine. Okay, my personal opinion here is not everything government does has to be in the guise of votes for your safety, all right? And that's why I don't want to go with this particular issue. There's plenty of facts that don't even involve safety as to why we shouldn't be doing this. And if we're going to get this through a public sentiment way, then we might as well do it the same way we did the building. And everybody who shows up has got to demonstrate that they own property here. You don't have to be a resident, but you demonstrate you own property and you get 1 vote per property. Because if you have 60 property owners and 12 of them own wakeboard boats and they bring 50 of their friends, then you don't get, but that's what will happen because the torches and the pitchforks will come out in this town as they tend to always do, and that's where this is gonna go. So we need to get ahead of all of this and make sure that we're doing it in a manner that gets us the best possible results, whatever it is. I don't care if it's one way or the other, but this can't turn into a freaking disaster like everything else.
It won't be.
I'd like to some say on it.
Okay, ma'am,
Cheryl Dodd, I'm a resident of Camelot. Is it on? Sorry.
is the red light on there? Okay, there you go.
Cheryl Dodd, I'm a resident of Camelot Lake, and I agree that it is a safety issue, but it's also a property damaging issue that I sit and watch my 300 feet of shoreline erode away and away and away after I just fixed it. And I don't believe that you have to own frontline property, lakefront property, to be concerned about this. There's a lot of people that own offshore that still have property or that have the right to use the lake, and they have boats on the lake, and they also have an issue with the wake boats. I've done a lot of research on it, and I'm one that has brought it up many times to the Camelot board as well as now to the town board. So I would like to see us move forward, whether that's an ordinance of some sort or the referendum of, voting across the town. So thanks for consideration and adding it to the agenda today.
Thank you, Cheryl.
Thank you, Cheryl.
We have in the past done votes on voting day that weren't on the ballot, right? Like, that's how we selected the facade for town hall. It's how we've made some other, because you have both the partisan primary and you have the general election. I would debate in Wisconsin the partisan primary is more important than the general election. Gotta make it through the primary. So a lot of people are gonna come out to vote, and you won't have anything on that ballot. I'm not opposed to having the referendum question, but if we did a series of things, like we had some open house time frames, we had it up for those that voted, both that would come to vote could write it on the boards while they're here. I understand it's not a tallied vote, but could vote that way. We have a subscription to SurveyMonkey. We would have an opportunity to do that, and you could put as part of the survey, own property, own lakefront property, non-resident but interested, that they could select.
How are you gonna control that?
I think you can on SurveyMonkey. Well, if you cleared your cookies, right? But it's gonna memorize that IP. But at least you'd get feedback through. If individuals said they wouldn't be able to make it here for any of the meetings and they weren't voting members, they could vote through SurveyMonkey. They could provide.
It'd still be
input.
non-binding anyway.
Yes. Yeah.
I think I agree. We need to get the input from as many of the property owners as possible, not just those of us that are permanent residents up here. because there are the two groups, and both have an equal interest in this issue.
You want the property owners, whether they're onshore or offshore, even the offshore people have an interest in the beach clubs, so they, you know, they also have an interest. so
But a
it's-
referendum that is only limited to registered voters of the town of
Oh, yeah,
Rome
no.
is going to exclude people who live in wherever and own a piece of property up there.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I don't, could be open to all property owners, correct?
So if you're
Not a
doing a
referendum.
Not a
referendum,
referendum.
they're coming in and they're voting on the question on the referendum. You'd have to be a person registered to vote and
To be a qualified
So,
elector.
okay, that's gonna be another consideration then.
So,
You could do
No
both.
decisions on it tonight, but.
There's nothing
it'll
to
be a
say we couldn't do
consideration.
both.
All right,
Certainly
what?
could.
One
You
second.
could do both methods, but I'm suggesting there, if you, it's likely gonna be best to do a variety, right? And take all of that input in than to do just one.
And
Since a referendum that would only allow full-time residents to vote, what about each of the associations doing each of their own referendums? Because as property owners, they're all members of that association, and then you could get a feedback from
It's just
all
a, it's
property
just a
owners.
poll. We're not gonna get everybody, you know that.
Well,
it's hard
for
for
the
Lake
town,
Huron
you're
to
not
get
gonna get
2/3 of
anybody
anything.
who's not a permanent resident, so by going to the
Qualified elector.
association.
So it wouldn't have to be permanent resident, but you'd have to be a Wisconsin resident and vote here in
You
the
have
town.
to be a town of Rome registered.
If you do a
voter.
referendum,
Yeah.
yes.
Okay.
And when would that referendum take place?
It would take place on the fall ballot. It would be.
So again, it would be on the
November.
ballot, which means people would have to come here on that Tuesday,
Or they would
No.
be an absentee.
or an absentee.
Now, if you're not residents, you can't be a resident in two areas
No, yeah.
No.
on election
Okay,
day.
well, I'm just suggesting that
It's a consideration. I think.
each of the associations could do their piece and then look at it as a whole.
Well, again, if we did a Survey Monkey, we'd send them all the
Right.
link and tell them to
I'm
send
gonna,
it all.
we're gonna, I think we've got enough information. This is a discussion. We're just gonna try and get the ground rules going. So I think for the next meeting, can we come back with some suggestions on, A, how do we handle this survey or a referendum? It sounds like the survey's gonna be a better route, or through the associations or something, but let's come back with that and get some rough ideas and questions. All right?
I'd like to have jet skis to go on these small little lakes.
I'm sorry?
I'd like to have jet skis, permanent ban on these.
Well,
That's
yeah,
where safety comes in.
all right.
I think we do have enough to talk, but I don't want to completely throw out the idea of,
Let's table this until the next meeting and bring it up again, please. So number 14, nope, we just did 14. Number 15, discussion of possible action, ordinance number 22, amendment to the Town Code, Chapter 137, boating and waterways, Article 1, water traffic, boating and water sports, Section 4, speed restrictions regarding removal of the 30.66 sub 2 sub AG sub 1 Wisconsin statute exemption.
The ordinance amendment was in your packet. This would remove the exemption about the 100 foot from shoreline. Again, you provided that exemption for your water expedition, I can't say it tonight anymore, I've said it too many times today. Event, for your water event.
Regatta.
So it does not inhibit Sherman in any way.
Not inhibit. But it
And
does.
frankly, with our ordinance, like I said for the last one, our ordinance does allow for an exemption from those speed restrictions where there's an authorized event, so yes, we just did with Shermlot, but if there was, other, events that were, requesting this, that would
Take them as they
be
come.
considered and possibly approved.
Motion to approve the ordinance amending Town Code Chapter 137.
I'll second it.
Any further discussion? This is gonna save us some money on signs too, isn't it?
Maybe.
Oh, yeah.
All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion is carried. Thank you. Again, tell Chief thanks. Number 16, discussion and possible action, review of the Town Code, Chapter 137, boating and waterways, and approve of the language for boating regulations signage at public boat landing. We can actually dispense with this, correct?
So, just a general comment, I think in your packet you had a, potential, sign, that wording, the state law exemption removed. I would also say that, depending on how you proceed forward with the earlier item that we just discussed, and you're bringing it back at the next meeting, you may want to add some language to the sign, depending on what the outcome of that is. And so it may be best to hold on ordering signs just so you can include that in the event you were to put some form of regulations there, just because you'd be controlling that by ordinance, and we'd have to put signs up anyway.
All right, so when will the
Good idea.
removal of the ordinance take effect for the 100-foot? Is that effective immediately?
It has to be posted at the posting board, so I mean, within the next couple days, once it's
Yeah,
posted
All
and
right, so
noticed.
do we
Yeah.
paint over on the
I'm
signs?
guessing they're going to cover that on the sign.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, it's not gonna, we can certainly tape over it, yes. It won't look super pretty until new signs are done. But I don't know that there's a purpose to print new signs, cause if you make a change regarding
Yeah.
wake boats, it's gonna have to get added. And you'd likely put it underneath, you know, one of these items, and then you're gonna like put a like semi-sign underneath it, it would,
I would hold off for now.
Yeah, I agree.
and we'll get some green duct tape.
Waterproof. All right, so we're done with 16 then, Nick? Okay. Number 17, discussion of possible action, update on property sale closing with Quick Trip Inc.
Attorney Flanagan's gonna handle that one.
All right, thank you. So this item relates to that property sale of an approximately 2-acre parcel in Rome Town Center. You may recall earlier this year, you approved the sale of property and the accompanying developers agreement. The reason that this is being brought back is really just because the offer was a little bit unique in the offer and the acceptance, in that it had some contingencies on it. Things like survey happening, rezoning happening, combining the parcel. So this is really just more of a general overview. This isn't asking for any action on your part. So the property survey and CSM has been completed. The parcel now has an appropriate meets and bounds description. Actually, I believe the CSM has also been recorded. So with that updated and correct now, accurate meets and bounds description, we did get the deed prepared, signed, the CSM now being recorded, and I believe all of the other requirements in place. We have now received from Quick Trip a waiver of any and all contingencies that are not related to the actual closing on the property. Those things I'm talking about are like that the deed needs to be at the title company for recording and that. They have waived all other contingencies, and I believe we are very close to getting that recorded at this point. We have signatures obtained, it just needs to go to the title company for final recording, and then we will be remitted the purchase price.
Okay. We still need a motion on this, correct?
There's
We don't?
no motion needed.
All right, well-
Again, there's nothing that's changed as far as anything that's been previously approved. I just wanted to let everybody know that there were some contingencies, as you may recall in that offer, those have been waived at this point, and we are going to proceed with closing on the property.
Good. All right, number 18, discussion of possible action, approval of a request from the Wisconsin Trap Shooting Association to waive the standby charge for emergency medical responders, EMR, at the Wisconsin State Trap Shooting Event, July 12th to the 17th.
There's a brief memo in the packet. This is a relationship we've had for several years with the Wisconsin Trap Shooting Association. Supervisor Giamatti did ask about how many hours this would be that they would be requesting with this waiver. It's about 72 hours that the fire department would be up there providing the service.
Mark, you okay with this?
Yes, it's 72 man hours, so
Yeah.
it's approximately 36 hours worth of time for, we station 2 people out there.
Man-woman hours.
People hours.
People hours.
All right. And a motion, please?
Move approval of the request of the Trap Association to waive the standby charges.
Second.
Any further discussion?
I only have one question. Are volunteers manning the table where you sell the raffle tickets for the Fireman's Fund? Or is that paid staff then?
referring,
There you go.
the fund raffle you're referring to, will be completed before that date
Oh,
even
all right.
comes.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion is carried. Number 19, discussion of possible action. Approval of renewal for Class B combination liquor licenses for the period of July 1st, 2022 through June 30th, 2023. KMC Tuck LLC, DBA Cal's Corner, 382 South Highway 13 South, Nakusa, Wisconsin, 54457. Romano's LLC, 108 County Road Z, Nakusa, Wisconsin, 54457. And the Dirty Ore Supper Club, 1682 Apache Lane, Nakusa, Wisconsin, 54457. Can I get a motion, please?
I move to approve the renewal of the Class B combination liquor licenses for the three businesses as presented.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion's carried. Dates and items for future agenda meetings, 20 next agenda items. Anything, folks have anything to add?
I have some I might send to Jamie.
One I would like to add back to the agenda is after we've had border review, revisit that release of Unit 2 for Sand Valley. I'll add that one back to the agenda so we can have that conversation after discussing that with the assessor.
All right, 21, next meeting date and time.
Next meeting date and time, we're gonna go into July. Can you believe it?
Don't want to.
July.
Days start getting shorter.
July 7th, 5 o'clock. Could we also just add to the list, we'll put together a public input plan for wake boats, and we will discuss, if you guys bring your calendars, time frame for extra budget meetings. We usually schedule 4 extra time frames for budget meetings, and we'll start to get those on the calendar for the fall.
I've just said in my schedule. All right. Can I get a motion for adjournment, please?
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carried.